Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Alien Bacon. Today, we have a spooky one for you, like usual. I'm very interested in this one in particular because, like, it's something that I know about and most people know about, but they don't know, like, the specifics or the particulars of it.
We know of it, and we know the kind of like the basics of, we watched Paranorman. We've got a little bit of an idea of what goes on in the Salem Witch Trials, but not all of it. Not the really good information.
Yeah, like I've seen movies based around these things, the basic stuff that women were brutally murdered for no reason, basically.
Yeah.
But that's like the only thing that I know about them.
They'd
So
never do a card trick if you're a woman in the 1600s. Or sorry, 1500s. Yeah.
Like with some of our other videos, we had a writer do a lot of research on the Salem Witch Trials. She wrote a 11-page document about them. And yeah, Pig and I don't know much about this at all, so we'll be learning together.
Yes, we will learn as a group.
So it's pretty fun. So let's see what this is all about. that's my witch cackle. Get me a cauldron.
Yeah. Humans have been mystified by the idea of witches for centuries, with interpretations varying widely. Stories of witches date back at least to the 8th century BC. They have appeared in literature, engravings, and historical events as beautiful temptresses, ugly hags, servants of the devil, and nature's healers. Witches are an archetypal image tied to our deeply held views on femininity and the misunderstood aspects of the psyche, and they have likely been a part of human culture since the beginning of time. However, most of our ideas about witches come from Christianity, particularly a wild paranoia that consumed Christian minds for several centuries. And that's why witches have a bad name in all walks of life, when in reality, witches are actually like people who like follow like the Wiccan and witch religion is actually very positive and very good, but like,
oh really?
Oh yeah, it's all about like nature and taking care of the earth and all, like, you know, that's just like kind of a basic idea of it, but it's very very good. But like Hollywood and, you know, this, for example, and Christians kind of gave witches like a bad name and like say they curse people and do terrible things and stuff, when in reality that's just not what it is.
Yeah, pop culture in general, just like if you're a witch, you're like this evil woman in the woods who like boils children alive and shit.
Yeah, I know. One of the earliest stories that significantly influenced our image of a witch was that of the Greek enchantress and minor goddess Cissy, who lived on the Mediterranean island of Aeaea.
I mean, it kind of sounds little. It looks like it sounds like
Aeaea. I mean, that's. I'll stick with that. Aeaea.
I don't know.
She had vast knowledge of potions and herbs, stole the manhood of her sexual partners, and transformed her rivals using a magic wand or staff. Yo, Cissy sounds pretty cool.
Based.
When Odysseus and his crew landed on Erie, she invited them to a feast laced with magical potions that turned them into pigs. Oh, damn. Shit.
Sheesh.
Odysseus outsmarted her with the help of the god Mercury and convinced her to restore his crew. She later became an ally, using her powers of prophecy to warn them of future dangers. Many interpret this story as an allegory for the seductive powers of alcohol, but it is also clearly tied to consuming feminine figure. Mix a story like that with medieval Christian dogma and you have a recipe for disaster. How do we go from the seductress Cissy to the image of the old hag serving the devil? Albrecht Dürer, one of the most famous artists of the early Renaissance and a contemporary of Da Vinci and Raphael, created a wildly popular engraving in 1500. The witch depicts a naked old woman riding backward on a goat. Why back? Wait, why is she backwards though? Surrounded by fallen cherubs. I guess that's fallen angels, I assume. It became a quintessential image associated with witchcraft and continues to influence our ideas on the subject today. Yeah, that is so like barbaric and kind of fucked up that we used their fucked up version of what a witch is from the 1500s and like use it today still.
Yeah, I know.
Before this period, the devil was a lesser figure in Christian text, a trickster, not powerful enough to be a direct rival to God. However, throughout the Middle Ages and Renaissance, the devil took on much greater significance. As Christianity spread, more people believed the devil and his servants were actual beings among us, tempting us into evil. This was the climate that fostered one of the earliest and most significant witch trials in European history, that of Helena Schuberen in Austria in 1485. The growing Renaissance made more people, including women, literate and intellectual. This was a frustrating time for Heinrich Kramer, a Catholic priest and inquisitor known for his evangelism and patriarchal views. Helena Schuberen publicly scorned him in front of his congregation, speaking out against his superstitious doctrines and calling him a bad monk. This led him to label her a witch.
What an asshole.
You said bad things about me, witch! Burn her! Jesus. During his investigation, he stalked her and recorded her sexual activities.
What?
Concluding that her adulterous relationship caused her lover, a knight, to magically fall ill. What?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that checks out. However, at her trial, Helena was released because the law didn't have a strict definition of what constituted a witch. Determined to change that, Kramer, with fellow inquisitor Jacob Sprenger, wrote the Malleus Maleficarum, known as the Witch Hunter's Handbook, which has caused more bloodshed than almost any other book in history. God, they write...
God,
dude.
Damn.
So you're telling me bro was... He got his masculinity shattered by this random woman. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to create an entire book about how you can kill women for free. Like, what a psychopath. What a sight. Oh my God, bro.
Like, he's got a really fragile ego. Good Lord.
Yeah, he's got some issues.
Published just after the invention of the printing press, the Malleus Maleficarum became the most widely distributed book of its time after the Bible. Damn, everybody was reading this
Jesus Christ, after the Bible? Damn. Yo, you guys see this book about killing women? Yo, check this shit out, bro.
This shit's hard.
This shit's fire. New York Times bestseller.
So messed up. Although I think at the time, like, misogyny was very normal.
Well, yeah, that back then.
At Kramer's request, the book received papal endorsement, further skyrocketing its popularity. It detailed how to identify, gather evidence against, and handle a captured witch. What?
Wow.
What do you mean, how to handle? You have to handle them in a specific way, or else they'll poof into dust or something.
Yeah.
It described the societal dangers of witchcraft. It claimed that women, especially older and frailer women, were more likely to be witches because their weaker bodies made them more susceptible to the devil.
What?
Okay.
What?
Poor old ladies back then.
Yeah, damn, they're just minding their own business.
They can barely walk, like their hips are broken, basically.
Witch!
And everyone's...
You're old and ugly and frail. You must be a witch. Burn her.
Like they blame their warts on witchcraft and shit.
Yeah, my God.
Midwives and medicine women were especially suspect for supposedly killing and eating babies.
Performing abortions.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they say they chalked up. Dude, that's something that would happen today.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are having abortions, so you're eating children? I wouldn't be surprised if people saying that today.
I'm not too sure how abortions were performed back then, but it must have been pretty grisly. So I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Like it must be terrible to do that in the first place, but then doing it and then people like blaming you for being a witch, accusing you of being one. That's so messed up. Other signs of witchcraft included a witch's mark in the form of a mole or birthmark. Oh my God, I was right.
Wow. That's crazy.
Justifying the stripping and shaving of accused persons. Yeesh.
What the fuck?
These poor women. If someone had freckles, weighed more than a stack of Bibles, didn't bleed when pricked or stabbed, or was unable to recite the Lord's Prayer without error, they were deemed guilty of witchcraft.
What? What do you mean weighed more than a stack of Bibles? What?
So all of them.
Yeah, every old lady. What do you mean?
Like, how big is this stack? You know what I mean?
Yeah, do you just have like a designated stack of Bibles that you're like, you seem like you weighed less than this. You seem like you weigh more than this.
And if someone had freckles, you know how many people had freckles? Like, what?
I mean, all of it was just an excuse to kill women. I mean, let's be honest. Like, there's no way.
This guy who was like shamed in public, I guess, took it upon himself to like put out a book that resulted in however many women's deaths that had nothing to do with that. Good Lord. Anyway, over the next century, the influence of this book, along with key historical events like the religious schisms between Catholics and Protestants and the Witchcraft Act of 1563 in England, further inflamed witchcraft paranoia. Witch hunts came in waves, especially during the peak of European hysteria between 1560 and 1630. The most notable European witch hunts included the Trier, Würzburg, and Bamberg witch trials in Germany, fueled by a combination of plagues, wars, and religious upheavals. The reign of James I in England and Scotland brought a series of witch trials emphasizing sexual deviance, alleged pacts with the devil, and orgy-like rituals.
What?
I guess like being hypersexual is like a form of
Which, I mean,
witchcraft?
Back then being hypersexual would probably just be having sex one time.
I know, right? That's
Yeah.
insane. like showing a calf in public or something.
Yeah. I could see ankles. Witch.
I know. Notable trials included the North Berwick and Pendle witch trials. James I was so committed to his role as a witch finder, cleverly using it for his own political gain, that he wrote his own book against witchcraft, named Demonology, in 1597.
Wow.
Let's
He
add
committed
the
to
pile
his
of
role
books.
as a witch finder.
I know, very nice, very nice.
Oh, man.
Despite belief in witchcraft being lower in Spain than in other European nations, the largest scale witch trial occurred in Zugarramurdi in the Basque Country, Spain, in 1609. The region's residents had long practiced rituals known as gapasas,
Yeah, there you go.
where they would eat, drink, talk, and dance all night in the forest or caves, sometimes consuming mind-altering herbs and ointments. These folk practices were outside Catholic authority and labeled as aquelarre,
These words, man.
or witches' Sabbath. A wave of stillbirths in the town led to suspicions of curses from witches, heightening distrust of these gatherings. A key confession of witchcraft by Maria de Zimildugi.
Zimildigi.
Maria de Zimildugi, an attendant of the Aquelarre, solidified local belief in witch activity. Around 2,000 people, almost 1,400 of them children, wrote letters confessing witchcraft and implicated another 5,000 individuals.
Oh my God.
The Spanish Inquisition oversaw a massive 11,000-page legal enterprise. Of the 7,000 accused, 2,000 were tried, but only 11 were executed. 6 were burned at the stake alive, while another 5, already dead in prison, were burned in effigy. Gotta make sure.
Yeah, just gotta make sure, I guess.
Most accused were released after the Inquisition concluded witchcraft was nearly impossible to prove. This dramatic event and other European trials gave rise to the idea of burning witches at the stake, whereas in the Salem Witch Trials, all the accused were hanged.
My God, dude. Imagine living in a time where people believed in this shit. Like, you would have to be, like, suspicious of everyone 24/7.
I know. It's kind of hard to, like, blame the people who started to believe it, because if everybody around you believed it, like, you just live in a world where witchcraft exists.
Yeah,
you know
just
what I mean?
accept it because you don't really, like, think. Especially back then, you don't have information. You just believe what people tell you.
It's these people that write these books that I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I don't know. I mean, they didn't have the same,
Yeah.
sensibility and logic as we do.
It's very, very easy to manipulate people back then. It's very easy to manipulate people now. Just easy to manipulate people. Just as witch paranoia was starting to die out in Europe, the messy situation in pre-revolutionary America drove them to embrace the trend wholeheartedly. Colonial Massachusetts was a difficult place to live, full of interpersonal conflicts, local squabbles, trouble with native tribes, economic disparities, and religious extremism. This harsh environment needed someone to blame for its troubles, and witches formed the perfect scapegoat.
Great.
Damn, there's a lot of bad shit going on. Can we all just agree it's probably the witch's fault? Like, come on.
People back then were so stupid.
Gotta point our fingers at somebody, right? Like, come on, guys. Jeez.
It makes me wonder why they weren't like blaming God, you know?
Well, because God's good. God can never be bad, right?
Like they must have thought they did something to
like upset God.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's the devil because the witches are the devil, right?
Oh, I guess. Like
Yeah.
if they connect these women with them like worshiping the devil, then yeah.
Yeah.
It's so messed up.
In 1692, there were actually two Salems in the same area. Salem Town, a lively port town with a growing merchant class, and Salem Village, now located in Danvers, Massachusetts, which consisted of 100 houses and surrounding farmland where 500 to 600 people lived. Salem Town, while still dominated by ruling Puritans, was more modern than the highly orthodox Salem Village. This fundamental disparity created long-standing animosity as the more conservative villagers were critical of the town's growing ambitions. Religious belief permeated daily life in Salem Village, including 2 lengthy church services per week, as well as extracurricular religious activities, a modest and humble agricultural lifestyle, and strict adherence to Puritan commandments. Rejecting puritanical superstitions like the existence of witches or the devil was tantamount to denying God and angels. Tensions were high between wealthy families and poor farmers. Displaced refugees from King William's War put a strain on the village's resources and aggravated local inequality. Harsh winters, epidemics, and Indian skirmishes added further strain that contributed to a suspicious and discordant atmosphere in the village. The colony of Massachusetts had lost its charter and was operating into a legal limbo until a new governor was named. Disputes over the selection of Salem's ordained minister divided the families of the village, many of whom wanted a leader with more independence from Salem Town. After a series of short-lived appointments, Reverend Samuel Parris became the official choice. Parris moved his family, including his wife Elizabeth and their children Betty, Susanna, and Thomas, his niece Abigail Williams, and their slave Tituba from Boston to the Salem Village minister's house. Parris was a Harvard dropout, failed merchant, and former sugar plantation owner. His rigid authoritarian style and insistence on receiving a higher salary along with additional benefits such as the deed to the parsonage angered many villagers. Parris had a faction of supporters who believed in a strict interpretation of Puritanism and calls for religious purity, but also plenty of opponents who viewed his attempts to control the church and secure greater personal gain as self-serving. In 1692, after the Parris family had spent 3 years in the village, the minister's house would become the epicenter of something chilling. In January of that year, 9-year-old Betty Parris and her 11-year-old cousin Abigail Williams began exhibiting bizarre behaviors, falling into convulsive fits, hiding under furniture, barking like dogs, twisting their bodies into unnatural positions, and making distressing claims of being pinched and bitten by unseen forces. Their alarming symptoms baffled Reverend Parris, who attempted various interventions, including a month of fervent prayers and home remedies. A month of fervent prayers.
It's just like back then, you couldn't be like just a weird kid without getting accused of something horrible. You know?
Yeah, like, I mean, like when we were talking about the lobotomy thing, it's like if you showed any, like, say, autistic or any emotional anything that was slightly different or weird, like, oh, you have brain damage. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I don't know. Back then, you know, they had zero clue that brains actually exist and can be different than other people's.
For some reason, a lot of the men in this document that we're reading about, like in power, they all remind me of Frollo.
Oh, from Hunchback
of Notre Dame, yeah.
Yeah, dude, now that's gonna stick with me. Every time Yeah, just like a pompous old dude with gray hair.
Hellfire.
Now I picture every dude that looks exactly like that now. That's all I see. Dude, actually look at Reverend Samuel Paris. He's actually him. Look at the picture. That's literally him.
Oh my God, yeah. It does kind of look like him.
It's actually him.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Disney writers took inspiration from some of these psychos.
Oh yeah, probably.
Shortly before the girls began exhibiting symptoms, they had periods during which they would disappear together for some time. They were suspected of dabbling in fortune-telling practices and folk magic, possibly described to them by the family's Caribbean slave Tituba.
Oh my God. These kids are probably just like autistic and or something even more. And they're just like, you know, doing weird shit and running away and stuff. That must be witchcraft. That's got to be witchcraft.
Like, kids just couldn't be kids back then. They couldn't be weird and silly.
I love how they blame it all on the slave too. Like,
it's messed up.
Yeah.
There was a movie released in '96 called The Crucible, and it's based around the same thing. It's based on the witch trials. It's
really?
Insane. This slave that we're reading about is in that movie. That's why it made me think of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was not uncommon for colonial girls to be interested in trivial occult practices like trying to divine who they would marry. However, when Betty and Abigail began having fits soon afterward, the idea took hold that they may have used magic and became possessed. Yeah, like this same thing happened in the movie. It's so crazy.
Really?
Yeah, like these. I mean, I think they twisted the narrative a little bit, but
yeah.
Reverend Paris called upon local physician William Griggs and minister John Hale to observe the girls' symptoms. Their consensus that the girls were victims of bewitchment was confirmed by their strange behaviors, described as beyond epileptic fits. Rumors spread like wildfire after Betty and Abigail's diagnosis of bewitchment. Over the next few weeks, several other young girls, Ann Putnam Jr., Elizabeth Hubbard, Mary Walcott, and Mercy Lewis, began demonstrating symptoms that mimicked Betty and Abigail's. Church services were interrupted with spontaneous outbursts from the afflicted girls. Whispers of witchcraft swirled through the village, and pressure was put on Betty and Abigail to name who had put them under an enchantment.
Oh boy.
Basically, everything I'm describing right now happened in this movie. So if anyone's interested that's watching this.
Dude, now I want to watch it after this.
It's called The Crucible. After some coaxing, the two girls named Tituba as the person who had cast a spell on them. Outside of the Paris household, accusations were being leveled by 12-year-old Ann Putnam Jr. and other afflicted girls. Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne were also named as witches, who had possessed the young women. The three accused women, all of them outcasts of one type or another, began interrogations in the Salem meeting house on March 1st, 1692.
What I'm getting here is these girls probably have a mental issue. They're doing weird things. And then everyone starts pressing them and yelling at them like, who did this to you? Who did it? And they just blame the slave because it's like, that's an easy target. And now, okay. This is so fucked up.
Or they were just convinced into believing that the slave was a witch.
Yeah, it could be that too.
Tituba was described by sources of the time as native, but later historical research pinpoints her origins as Caribbean. Most likely Barbados, or possibly originally from Venezuela. Betty and Abigail claimed she had told them stories of voodoo-like practices. Authorities of the village, including Reverend Paris, came to believe this was how she lured the girls to cast her spell on them. Tituba was thrown in jail and beaten for a confession by Reverend Paris.
Yeah, Tituba had no option. They just had to.
Yeah, and it probably didn't help that she was a slave and,
Well, yeah.
Sarah Good was poor due to a law cutting her and her 7 sisters out of their father's inheritance, compounded by debt from her first husband. She, her second husband, and her daughter were beggars who depended on other villages for survival. She was said to have wandered around the town muttering and had an unpleasant demeanor, whether she received charity or not. Neighbors claimed she had possessed 2 women. Her status as a beggar caused a suspicious eye to be turned on any other destitute people in the village. She was the victim of an unfair life and likely had mental health issues and family strife. During the trials, her second husband testified against her as a witch due to her bad carriage to him.
Oh my God. Yo, she didn't treat me right. Yep, she's a witch. Yep. Wow.
God damn it.
Your fucking second, that's crazy. Your second husband testified against you. Yeah, I didn't like her attitude. She's a witch. Nope.
God forbid you're a woman during that time. And
Dude, I know.
You go out of line just a little bit, you know? Sarah Osborne was a wealthy widow whose first husband had left behind a large plot of land. She hired an indentured servant, Alexander Osborne, to work the land after her husband's death and was known to have had extramarital relations with him. He eventually paid off his indenture, and the two married and took ownership of the land. This caused a rift and ongoing legal battle with her sons and former brother-in-law, Captain John Putnam, of the prominent Putnam family, as male heirs were the typical beneficiaries of a land inheritance. Osborne also hadn't attended church in nearly 3 years, claiming a long-standing illness, which historians now believe to have been depression.
You didn't go to church for 3 years. Criminal. Scum.
I mean, for the time, it was probably seen as odd.
Yeah.
Like,
because, I mean, back then it was probably like mandatory for everyone.
Yeah, you had to go.
Yeah.
or you're probably like, involved with these weirdos in the forest dancing around.
After harsh treatment and intense interrogation, Tituba confessed to witchcraft. Oh, man. Poor Tituba.
I know. God damn it. It would suck to be her.
Oh, here we go. She claimed that a tall man dressed in all black approached her, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, asking them to sign their names in his great book. Tituba provided a detailed account of her interactions with the devil, telling of traveling upon sticks and describing scenes involving strange animals and unnatural creatures. She said, "I must serve him 6 years and he would give me many fine things." Her descriptions instilled fear in the community, but her confession and promised repentance saved her life. Reverend Paris, embarrassed by the scandal, refused to pay her legal fees. Consequently, she remained in prison under nearly unlivable conditions for 13 months, sometimes brought as a witness against others until an unknown person paid her bail. Whoa.
So
I mean,
she was definitely at least like she was probably forced to say these things.
Well, no, she outsmarted them because she made up this whole thing in order for her to like get out of it. Because she said, "I must serve 6 years and he would give me many fine things."
Yeah, but I mean, like, she was forced to admit it, or else she would have been killed.
I mean,
like,
she was literally beat, like, probably to near death, and she had to confess. If she didn't, she'd just fucking die. So
yeah, there's no winning there.
Yeah.
Like,
Sarah Good pleaded innocent at her trial, accusing Tituba and Osborne of being the real witches. Her story failed to convince the village authorities, and she was convicted and sentenced to hang. 2 months later, she was hanged on Proctor's Hill with 4 other accused women. Oh my God.
I wonder who paid Tituba's bail. The anonymous person.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I mean? Like, there's got to be one like kind human who knew this was all bullshit.
I mean, there's got to be people back then that were like, this witch stuff kind of crazy, like there's got to be some people out there that were like, this shit's like killing people over this stuff. Like, come on. So yeah, I guess Sarah Good and then 4 other people who were just accused got hanged.
Yeah, just random women who were accused. Probably they probably spoke up to their husband too loud.
I mean, we don't know for sure which one's a witch. Just get rid of all of them, Why not?
And it sucks too, because like if you had any sort of affiliation with a witch, like you would probably get hanged as well.
Yep.
Like if you were friends with this person or something. Yeah.
Sarah Osborne was one of the few accused who maintained her innocence throughout the ordeal. She consistently denied any association with evil and refused to name others during questioning. She died in prison on May 10th, becoming the first casualty of the Salem Witch Trials. Betty Paris, Abigail Williams, and Elizabeth Hubbard seemed to recover after the initial suspects were brought into custody, but Ann Putnam Jr.'s strange behavior persisted. She and her father, Thomas Putnam, claimed she saw the specters of Dorothy Good, the 4-year-old daughter of the recently convicted Sarah Good. Elizabeth Proctor and Martha Corey, who had expressed skepticism about the credibility of the girl's accusations and was known to have a mixed-race son born out of wedlock. Abigail also claims 71-year-old resident Rebecca Nurse was the specter of an old woman sitting in her grandmother's chair. These newly accused, including 4-year-old Dorothy Good, were arrested and question? 4-year-old Dorothy Good was arrested and questioned.
I know. What do you?
Kid can barely talk. Are you a witch? Like, Jesus Christ.
I can't believe this actually happened. What the hell?
So I don't get it. Like, they saw quote unquote specters of the 4-year-old. And they're just like, oh, dude, I keep seeing shadows of this 4-year-old girl, probably witch. Same with the old lady. It's like, I don't, that's crazy. The arrest of Rebecca Nurse and Martha Corey particularly shook the church-going populace. These women were not poor outsiders, but members of respectable families and fully covenant members of the church. Their status and religious devotion did not protect them, making people fear that no one was safe from accusation and that dark magic might have reached the highest ranks of the community. Abigail Williams' symptoms returned, and upon questioning, she claimed that Elizabeth Proctor's specter tormented her. Elizabeth's husband, John Proctor, was a successful farmer and businessman who ran the local tavern and owned large tracts of land. He was an outspoken skeptic of the girl's quote-unquote affliction. When his wife was accused, he defended her fiercely and questioned the integrity of the afflicted girl's behavior. He monitored his 20-year-old servant Mary Warren, who had just testified at Rebecca Nurse's trial. Later in the trial, some of Mary Warren's peers turned on her and began labeling her a witch. She confessed under duress in her trial. So basically, literally all of this is like pointing random fingers, and then if someone cracks under the pressure, just like, I can't handle this anymore, just sure, whatever, I'm a fucking witch. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Imagine your wife that you know for a fact isn't a witch gets accused, and then you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No, like, I know this woman, like I'm with her all the time. There's no way. And then, like, I don't know. It just must have been so aggravating.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Proctor and Sarah Cloyce, Rebecca's nurse sister, were examined in Salem town, with an unlikely witness testifying against them. John Indian, the Native American husband of Tituba, claimed to have fits and accused both Elizabeth Proctor and her husband of tormenting him. Following these accusations, John Proctor was also taken into custody. Sarah Cloyce and both Proctors were found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. Authorities seized the Proctors' property and belongings, leaving their 7 children destitute. Oh my God.
What the fuck, dude? Dude, they're literally, it's just like at this, I think they're just so fucking scared of the whole witch thing. It's like, I don't know, they could all be, just fucking kill them, I'm scared.
It's such like a insane scenario, this whole thing. Like, you have a group of people who definitely believe that witches exist and they don't know where they're coming from. And they like if you were one of those people, then it's hard to blame some of these people for believing in this stuff. And then like if you accused a woman and she said she wasn't one, then you would just say, oh well, obviously she would say that to protect herself.
That's exactly what a witch would say, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it just seems like everyone's just pointing fingers, and then whoever gets the finger pointed at them dies. Like, there's like no proof, there's no like way to figure out if they're a witch. They're just like, I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like they're a witch. It's like, all right, kill them. Like, there's literally no way of figuring it out. They're just guessing.
Throw them on the Bible book scale.
Yeah. How much do you weigh? How do you weigh more than these Bibles? You probably do, don't you?
Accusations continued, and people from miles beyond Salem Village were brought to the Salem Meeting House for questioning. This included Reverend George Burroughs, who had served as the village minister for 3 years a decade prior, and had evidently left bad feelings in his wake. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and he was transported on a 2-day journey from Wells, Maine to face accusations of witchcraft in Salem. It's so weird, so men can be witches too?
Yeah.
Like, John Proctor was accused and killed, and...
Like that,
it's just
there's
like,
zero.
What?
Yeah, there's literally zero basis off of anything. They're just like, it was mostly women, but yeah, I think John Proctor's the only man that died so far.
Wouldn't the men be warlocks?
Yeah, exactly. Get it right. Or a mage.
Just ridiculous. Or a mage, yeah. It's so crazy. But it's just weird because like when you think of these like trials, you normally just think of women, right? But it wasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like it was mostly women.
Yeah, mainly.
With over 150 suspected witches overflowing the local jails. Oh my God, that's so many.
Jesus.
The situation in Salem became unsustainable. Conveniently, Increase Mather. Their name's Increase Mather?
That is a very interesting name. What is your name?
God,
Increase?
His name actually is Increase Mather.
The fuck?
What the hell? That's a weird name. Anyway. Conveniently, Increase Mather, a prominent Puritan minister and powerful political figure in the Massachusetts colony, returned from England with a new colony charter establishing Sir William Phipps as Massachusetts' new governor. With a new governor in place, the colony now had legal grounds to prosecute the accused. Governor Phipps enacted a special court, the Court of Oyer and Terminer, with the explicit authority to adjudicate cases of witchcraft.
Wow.
Increase Mather's son. I just can't with
Yeah,
this
that
guy's
name.
Whatever, dude. It's like naming your son like vertical.
Diagonal. Decrease. Come here, Decrease.
It's just weird. Increase Mather's son, Cotton Mather, known as the first American evangelical and a prominent Boston minister, became a consultant to the newly established court. Mather was already reputed for his pamphlets and book on the dangers of witchcraft and was regarded as a local expert on the topic. Although he fully supported the trials, he remained a voice of moderation throughout. He advised the court to exercise caution to avoid wrongful convictions and warned against using spectral evidence, claims based on being harmed by a specter or ghostly presence of the accused, due to its unreliability.
Well, at least they threw that one out. Like,
I know, like they had some common sense at least.
people literally fucking died because, like, I don't know, bro. I had a weird feeling that I think I saw a specter of that dude just chilling next to me. I don't know. Could be a
Pretty
witch.
sure there was a ghost. All right, hang him.
Just get rid of him. I don't know.
Despite his warnings about spectral evidence going unheeded, Mather's name became immortalized in connection with the trials the following year when he wrote The Wonders of the Invisible World, observations as well historical as theological upon the nature of the... What the fuck?
What? That is a long ass title. What the fuck? Jesus.
Good Lord. The title to this book is like an entire page. The Wonders of the Invisible World. Why didn't he just name it that?
Yeah.
Observations as well historical as theological upon the nature, the number, and the operations of the devil.
That doesn't even... What? Like, that's such a dumbass title. Sorry.
Like, why didn't he just name it The Wonders of the Invisible World, Operations of the Devil, instead of all this other stuff? Whatever. This book is the most detailed contemporary account of the trials. The Court of Oyer and Terminer proceedings began in June 1692, convicting Bridget Bishop and sentencing her to death by hanging. 1 week later, she was executed on Proctor's Ledge at Gallows Hill, becoming the first person hanged during the trials.
Wow.
Just seems like it never ends, this nightmare.
Dude, you know what's funny? I was looking back at the pictures. She has a picture of the warrant for the arrest of the 4-year-old Dorothy Good.
What the hell?
There's literally
Are you kidding me?
There's a picture of the warrant for a 4-year-old's arrest. Like,
that's just a joke. How could you be like? I know these people are stupid. That's obvious, but honestly, they don't know that a 4-year-old couldn't possibly be involved in any of this. Like,
you never know. The court's zeal to convict with dubious evidence was evident from the first sitting. Even within the court, opinions were divided. The court's first appointed judge, Nathaniel Saltonstall, resigned before the second sitting due to dissatisfaction with the court's operations. The court employed absurd methods to uncover the truth, such as witch cake tests, where a mix of rye flour and the urine of afflicted individuals was fed to a dog. If the dog displayed symptoms similar to the afflicted person, the accused witch was confirmed as guilty. What?
how do they think of this shit?
You pee on rye flour, make bread, give it to a dog. What the fuck? Other dubious evidence included confessions, often forced, house searches yielding questionable books, charms or potions, and the presence of a witch mark, which is freckles or a mole. My God.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
When the 12 ministers of the court convened for a second time, they executed the convicted Rebecca Nurse, Sarah Good, John Proctor, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Howe, Sarah Wilds, George Jacobs, Martha Carrier, and John Willard. Elizabeth Proctor's execution was postponed because she was pregnant. She was eventually pardoned along with 153 other prisoners. The following year, she remarried in 1699 and in 1703. The Massachusetts legislature returned her and her late husband's seized property. Well, at least they all didn't die. I was expecting like all of them to like get executed because they were all convicted, but
I mean, a good number of them did, but yeah.
Yeah. Giles Corey, a 71-year-old landowner and Martha Corey's husband, continued to argue her innocence and piety while she awaited her sentence in prison. This brought him under suspicion and he was tried in court. During his trial, he refused to enter a plea possibly to prevent his property from being seized, as had happened to the Proctors, neighbors he had previously argued with. His refusal led to the court to enact peine forte et dure, an antiquated French legal tradition where the accused was pressed under increasingly heavy stones until they entered a plea or died. What?
Oh my God.
What? You put him on a hydraulic press until he admits? That's crazy, bro.
He was 71 years old too.
Giles Corey was tortured under the weight of stones for 2 days, but never pleaded and was eventually crushed to death.
You'd think after the first day they'd be like, all right, dude, you're good.
Dude, honestly, like kudos to this dude. He would never accept, he would never surrender. He would rather die than do that.
This actually happened in the movie too.
Really? Getting crushed by stones for 2 days?
Yeah.
Jesus. Visceral events like this and continued skepticism of the court's reliance on spectral evidence caused public opinion to shift against the witch trials. Took a while. A gathering of ministers in Cambridge agreed on a more restrained approach, stating, "It would better that 10 suspected witches should escape than one innocent person should be condemned." True. Despite this more cautious approach, public opinion continued to turn against the trials, and by October 29, 1692, Governor Phipps dissolved the Court of Oyer and Terminer. In a bid to restore order and justice, the new Massachusetts Superior Court convened on January 3, 1693, to reevaluate the remaining witchcraft cases under the strict condition of abandoning spectral evidence. Of the 56 accused still awaiting sentencing, 8 had death warrants signed, 3 tied by the Superior Court and 5 previously convicted by the Court of Oyer and Terminer. Governor Phipps intervened in the case of 5 prior convictions, granting reprieves pending payment of jail fees due to the questionable evidence of the former court.
It seems like they're finally getting some sense after how many people died?
Took many years, but yeah, I don't know how many people died. Had to be, 20 probably?
In total, the witch trials resulted in the accusation of 190 individuals, 78% of whom were women, many being poor, servants, slaves, and of mixed race. 19 were executed by hanging, 1 man was tortured to death, and at least 5 died in prison.
That was close, said 20. It was right there.
By 1696, Samuel Parris, the controversial minister of Salem Village, whose superstitious dogma contributed to the climate that led to the witch trials, resigned. In an attempt to heal as a community, they appointed Reverend Joseph Green as village minister in 1698. Man, why don't they execute this Samuel Parris guy?
Yeah, I know.
For what he's done.
Jesus
Christ. Green made reconciliation efforts such as rearranging church seating to place the families of the accusers and accused next to each other. In 1697, now recognizing the events of 1692 as a grievous error and injustice, Massachusetts declared a day of public fasting and prayer in remembrance of the trials. On this day, the 12 jurors apologized for their roles in the trials.
Not enough.
I know.
I want you all to sit under a rock crushing you for 2 days. I feel like that's fair.
Yeah. In 1706, Anne Putnam Jr., then a 27-year-old woman, publicly expressed regret for her part in the witchcraft trials as part of her efforts to become fully ordained in the church. She is the only afflicted person to have done so, quote-unquote afflicted.
Yeah.
Over the years, there have been several attempts to officially pardon those convicted during the Salem Witch Trials. The first was in 1711, with additional pardons in 1945, damn, quite a bit later.
Yeah, a little bit later.
And 2001?
Damn.
In 2021, historians succeeded in identifying and pardoning the final convicted individual. What? Why did it take so long?
God damn. That's hundreds of years, bro.
Like they're long dead now. What's the point?
Jesus.
One of the lingering questions from the Salem Witch Trials is what caused the disturbing fits and villagers attributed to witchcraft. One obvious explanation is that the afflicted simply fabricated their symptoms to gain attention, power, or revenge, or to drive a disliked person out of town. This was almost certainly the case for some of the afflicted, especially those like Abigail Williams, who appeared able to turn her symptoms on and off.
So were they just faking and trolling so they could get someone killed?
Yeah, basically. That is so extreme. Maybe they didn't think that the person that they were accusing would die. Well, no, they probably must have known that.
Yeah, they had to have known that.
So that's really fucked up, even for them. However, in the 1970s, scientists proposed a different theory. Rye, one of the main crops of Salem Village, was often stored for long periods through harsh winters. Rye is a breeding ground for ergo fungus, or ergot, which is one of the ingredients used to make LSD. Consuming raw ergo fungus, or ergot, can have several dramatic effects, including muscle spasms, fever, dazed or manic behavior, tremors, hallucinations, and distorted perceptions. Oh my God, imagine getting high without meaning to and being so confused.
That'd be terrifying. So the whole peeing on the rye bread and feeding it to the dogs, if that rye bread happened to have the ergo fungus in it, the dog's gonna spaz out. Oh, wow.
There is no historical corroboration for this theory, but it could offer one possible explanation for why so many villagers began displaying symptoms around the same time. I mean, if you had some people going like psycho on LSD, you would probably start like trying to think up some possible explanation for this,
true.
You know?
Because back then, they had no fucking clue.
There is no single explanation for why the Salem Witch Trials happened. They were driven by a complex interplay of social and psychological factors. Scapegoating is a sociological phenomenon named after an ancient ritual. In pre-Judaic societies, a community would symbolically place its sins upon a goat that was sacrificed to cleanse them of their evil deeds. The scapegoat theory of intergroup conflict claims that in times of economic despair, we see an increase in prejudice and violence towards outgroups. This played out in Salem, with women and marginalized people making up the bulk of those accused. With society feeling increasingly vulnerable to external threats, scapegoating provided a mechanism to symbolically purge the community of perceived dangers. So they'd be like, oh, little Susie over there, she's kind of a cunt, so...
Yeah. It's like, I don't like you, so I'm just gonna start pointing fingers at you. The Puritan Society of colonial Massachusetts, where people were pressured and even forced by law to conform to strict societal rules, was the perfect environment to foster groupthink. Collective hysteria reinforced the notion of witchcraft as a genuine threat. Several of those who expressed skepticism were tried and killed. Voicing a different opinion during the trials was not only awkward, it was dangerous. Oh my God, dude. What a horrible time to live.
Yeah, you had to go along with everybody else, you know?
Yeah. Moral panic, where a widespread belief develops that something evil is threatening society, has four contributing factors: media, moral entrepreneurs, a culture of societal control, and the public. Salem had the ultimate convergence of these factors, leading to wildly disproportionate reactions to the perceived threat. Tautological reasoning permeated the trials. Witches were presumed guilty because they were accused, and their failure to prove innocence reinforced guilt. This circular logic left little room for legal defense and entrenched the presumption of guilt. Physicians' diagnosis of bewitchment added to the merit of the claims. As educated and respected members of the community, the largely illiterate society found it difficult to counter their professional conclusions. Yeah, that's the other thing, is like a lot of them were just really uneducated. They just trusted people who they thought were smarter than them. The trials also served as a mechanism to maintain the strict societal hierarchy. Persecution reinforced the authority of community leaders and religious figures by directing social anxieties toward conveniently defenseless scapegoats. The time period marked by economic transition and political instability in New England led to increased social stressors and competition, making the village rife with internal conflicts. Rooted in the malus maleficarum and misogynistic interpretations of the Bible using stories like Adam and Eve and the Whore of Babylon, sexism in the trials is quite apparent. Women were disproportionately accused, reflecting gender-powered imbalances and societal fears of female autonomy. The trials expose patriarchal dynamics where women's nonconformity was met with brutal repercussions. Now, if you think,
like I said before, it must have sucked to be a woman. Back then.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks to be a woman now. I can't even imagine like it back then.
And then imagine being Tituba like a woman slave,
God,
and
I
then
know.
being singled out as a witch, and then being smart enough to get out alive. Like that is crazy, dude.
Well, that was depressing.
Yep. So if you wanna if you wanna see this in a movie, you should go watch The Crucible.
Yeah, I might check
But-
that out because
Yeah, it goes over a lot of this stuff. So I
Yeah.
guess I knew more than I let on in the beginning, but I forgot that I watched that movie so long ago. I just didn't know how accurate it was to what happened back then.
I think main thing I can't get over is fucking arresting a 4-year-old and questioning a 4-year-old.
I know.
Like,
What the hell was
Out of
that about?
everything, it's like, I don't know. That's just wild.
It is weird that like our idea of a witch now is like an old lady who lives in a hut in the middle of the woods, like casting spells and stuff. When I think most of the women back then that were accused and killed were younger, I think.
Yeah, surprisingly, there wasn't a lot of old women that got, a lot of like middle-aged women or even younger that got killed for basically nothing. Like they literally got killed for nothing. There was no,
Just the insanity of the time.
like, I honestly was expecting like them just doing something weird, like that confused people, like doing a trick with their hands or like, you know, doing that thing with your finger that looks like you're pulling your finger off, but you're not. And they're like, witch, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I expected.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was just straight up like, oh, I don't know. I think I saw him talking to the devil or something. And then that's it. Like, you're done. And then you get crushed under rocks until you admit that you're a witch. Like,
People were so like brutal back then and like savage.
that
You know what I mean?
that's another crazy part is like, if you are accused, they would torture you until you admit it. It's like you don't even get the chance to say, no, I'm not that. You're just like,
there's no way you could win, you know? It's
crazy.
Like, well, I'm screwed now, I guess, because people think I'm a witch. Like, that's it. I guess your only option would be to run away, you know?
yeah. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Salem Witch Trials. I visited Salem one time.
You did? How was it?
It was really cool. I got to see all the places where they recorded for Hocus Pocus.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been to Salem a couple of times. I used to live in New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we went on Halloween, and we, like, they have a lot of cool little shops, but they have, like, a area, like, on the beginning of Hocus Pocus, like, you know, it's like an old-timey buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
They still have those exact same buildings that you could walk in and stuff from, like, the 1600s.
Dang, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really
you
cool.
Went inside them?
Yeah. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.